So hustle works until it does not. Okay. When it comes to this concept of hustle culture, sometimes we will hustle ourselves out of our purpose. We will hustle ourselves out of what is actually important. We will hustle ourselves out of our own healing. Right? We are very much in a hyper individualistic culture where we are told that you always have to be on, but you got to ask yourself, who is that for? And also the side effects of that. If I'm always running and gunning, I'm burned out, which means that even when I show up in my relationships, I'm half of a human. I'm a shell of a human. The reason why is because I have nothing in the tank. Okay? When it comes to this concept of busy, it's a word personally that I don't really like to use because I know it doesn't mean anything, right? I am not trying to sound more important to anyone more than what I actually am. I like to be productive though, right? A lot of the things I do, I'm not always talking about. I'm just doing them. Why? Because I enjoy them. Okay? I'm not trying to appear as something for other people to necessarily validate or appease, right? Um, and the thing about busy is everybody can be busy doing something. Some people are busy doing absolutely nothing. Some people can be busy binge watching TV. Some people are busy doom scrolling. Some people are busy watching other people's lives who they don't support. Right? And some people are busy distracting themselves from just being with themselves. Right? Busyness doesn't really mean anything, but productivity usually has a purpose or a through line. And when it comes to hustling and doing this and having to get yours, I think it's so crucial to understand, what am I doing it for? What's the end goal? And truth be told, anything that is good for you won't require you to sacrifice the things and people that are good to you. That's something I like to always keep in mind, because there are certain people who are so determined to be successful monetarily, and they end up very lonely, right? Because what's the point of all this success if you have nobody to share it with? I thought that was the goal. Or do you want to just appear successful to people who aren't even in your life and you just want the praise, you want the validation? Okay. My metric system for success is always the people I have in my life. What do my relationships look like at this stage in my life? Because I always say you could always make money, right? But do you want to make money miserable? Or do you want to make it doing something meaningful that feels good to you? Right? A lot of times we will experience burnout when we are hustling. And the reason why is because you're not doing enough of what makes sense to your body and your nervous system. I'm not saying don't challenge yourself. Absolutely. Go for it. Do your thing. Right? That's important. That matters. Right? But there's a difference between testing your limits and exceeding them. And a lot of times when it comes to hustle culture, we are exceeding them. We're also aimless, right? I think they call it burning the midnight oil. Is that a thing? You guys could tell me. But it's this idea of going past your point to be perceived a certain way. Like, you ever hear that person that's, in competition with how much sleep they didn't get in comparison to somebody else? Somebody's like, man, I only slept 4 hours. They're like, oh, really? I only slept 20 minutes, and I've been at it since. That's not healthy. That's not healthy, right? And don't let you be operating heavy machinery and you're telling me you only got 20 minutes of sleep. Wait, what? That's not okay, right? We got to understand a lot of times what we are bragging about. You're bragging about being burdened and burned out. Like you're not good for anybody. You got to understand, what information are you giving? Because if you're reckless with yourself, how are you going to be with me? Right? When it comes to hustling, it's really understanding, what is the end goal? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? How does it feel while I'm doing it? Okay. And you'll know if you are pursuing your actual purpose versus doing something to appease other people or get praise from other people. It won't feel right. Everything you do will not feel fulfilling. You'll be tired. You'll be exhausted. But you'll also recognize you're probably frustrated. You're probably bitter. You probably feel lost. You probably feel discouraged. You probably feel devalued. The reason why is because you're not doing anything that makes sense to you. You're not doing the thing. You're just doing something. There's a difference, right? When you're doing something, it's just like busy. When you're doing the thing, it's productivity. And your body knows, your body keeps the score. And if you are hustling, what are you fearful of, right? One of the things I promised myself, it was a birthday not too long ago, a few years back, I promised myself, I said that I will no longer endure life, instead I'll enjoy it, right? So in other words, everything that I was doing from that point on would be to create a better life for myself. And if I'm creating a better life and emotional ecosystem for myself, by design, my relationships are going to look that way too. All right. The goal is to not be so successful that you are literally in your own solitary confinement, your own personal hell, because you felt like you needed to cut everything and everybody off just to get something. And it's like, well, what did it cost you? If it costed you everything that means something to you, then it probably doesn't mean much. All right? One sign of you hustling in the wrong direction is nothing that you accomplish feels like anything. Feels like nothing, right? Like I said, you're fatigued for sure, but it doesn't feel like you've amounted to anything. There's no real legacy. And also, who are you trying to make happy when you're hustling? Okay. I think the people that genuinely care about us don't want to know that we are running ourselves into the ground. I was talking to someone recently, and they were telling me how much they have going on and how they've been running around doing everything for everybody else. And I was like, did you eat? Hey, what have you done for yourself today? Right? Because how busy you are does not interest me. I don't care about that, right? That's not an accomplishment for me, right? I want to hear what you're doing, but I also want to know how you're doing. That matters more, okay? The people that want to see you do well also want to make sure that you are taking care of yourself. But you got to ask yourself, do I want to make sure I'm taking care of myself? Success is not just about money. You can always make money, but you won't always make good friends, okay? You won't always have that person, your partner. You won't always be in the right environment. And sometimes your willingness to get all these other superficial things will cancel all those other things out that are necessary, that do establish some level of longevity, that do establish some level of success and fulfillment, okay? Sometimes you will hustle yourself out of your own purpose and your own healing, right? How do you know what you're doing is meant for you? Even if you have obstacles and challenges, you'll still have a certain level of trajectory and ease, okay? I remember I started podcast almost 8 years ago, and when I was initially doing it, I was just like, I'm just gonna make sure I'm being consistent. That's the goal, be consistent. And be purposeful, right? Have something worth saying versus just talking. And at first I was like, I probably won't last past 2 months. And I was like, I'll probably run out of things to say. And I had someone recently say to me, they were like, it's funny because before I knew you, I started listening to your podcast from the very beginning. I went to episode 1 and I listened up until now. They were like, I noticed the progression and the maturity over this span of time, right? And it's funny because even in moments where I didn't want to necessarily show up to the podcast because I was hustling, there were other things that I was hustling for that didn't make sense for me, right? Almost hustled myself out of my purpose. Because the podcast, no matter what challenges I've had, led to where we are right now. And it has created a space for so many other things, okay? So tenacity was there, discipline was there, determination was there, ambition was there. And even in those challenges, it still led me to this moment. And I'm not hustling like I used to. I do a lot, like I said, but it's different because everything that I'm doing feels fulfilling, right? I'm good. So if you are in this hustle space right now, ask yourself, what am I doing? How am I doing? What am I doing this all for? Okay? Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other.